All rise for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Alvarez.
Present.
Councilman Larka.
Here.
Councilman Lord.
Here.
Councilman O'Connor.
Here.
Supervisor Hay.
Here. Notations of the exits in the front and the rear and electronic device. Please put it on vibrate. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending tonight's public hearing. Let me set the parameters of how this meeting will take place this evening. I will start the proceedings and explain the purpose of these proceedings and clear up all the tremendous amount of misinformation that has been printed in local media and on social media. Each speaker will be given a 10-minute window to speak, and once everyone has had an opportunity to speak, a 5-minute window will be allotted for each speaker to clarify any comments they would like to speak to after everyone is on the record. No speaker can yield time to another. At the end of the meeting, the public hearing will be closed, but will remain open with written comment until Wednesday, February 19th, 2020 at 12 noon. On this is what appeared in the local newspaper this past week. Alert. Town of Southeast residents. Is there a compelling public need to swap open space, Pugsley Road land, for a developer's parcel on Star Ridge Road? Southeast public officials are scheming to fast-track a swapping of open space land on Pugsley Road adopted by a 2007 resolution of the town board, the Open Space Committee, and supported by voters in the 2005 referendum, which approved $5 million for the preservation of open space. To preserve the rural character of this town and protect Tildy Foster Farm from the onslaught of development pressure, Southeast residents agreed to an increase in their taxes. Now those taxes are going to be used to benefit a developer who wants to build a sports complex on Pugsley Road, and let's make a deal. That was a TV show, by the way. Scheme, swap his flat, barren, distant 100-acre land to fulfill the open space mandate. As a taxpayer, shouldn't you approve of this land swap? Is there a compelling need for a sports complex when developer Harold Lepler donated 15 acres not a mile away, and with the town having 6 parks with over 100 acres, the purpose of active recreation? If your answer is no, please attend the public hearing February 13th, Southeast Town Hall, 1360 Route 22 at 7 p.m. Don't let your tax dollars with the covenants of a public official be diverted and misused by developers. Scheming, not by this town, but by the article, which appears to be a well-calculated attempt to provide the public with misleading information. When residents approved the $5 million open space bond, did the town Open Space Committee make the public aware that you were agreeing to pay back the equivalent of $370,000 a year mortgage payment for the next 20 years, a total of $7.4 million? That payback rate calculates out to 5% annually. However, the town is limited to a tax cap of only 2%. Fortunately, though, the town only borrowed $2.2 million, which cost the town $165,000 a year, $3.3 million over 20 years, which equates to 2.2%. The taxes you are paying are for an open space bond. Regardless of its location, does not, nor will it ever benefit a developer as being told. Developers pay their own proportionate share of their taxes, just like you and I. Ms. Venezia claims that is a let's make a deal, and the town board are conniving public officials. Nothing could be further from the truth. And let me try to put this in perspective and to explain it to you as what is going on in layman's terms. To be able to even consider the transfer of a designated open space land, the town must first obtain permission from the New York State Legislature. To begin this process, the town must file a home rule request with the New York State Assembly and New York State Senate. What is a home rule request? In this case, the town of Southeast is requesting that the New York State Assembly and New York State Senate authorize the town to swap one parcel of land for another parcel of land that is either similar or, in this case, greater in size. Under the current proposal, the town would swap approximately 81 plus or minus acres located at 132 Pugsy Road for approximately 95 acres on Star Ridge Road. If approved by the New York State Legislature, the owner of the Star Ridge property would only receive a portion of the land on Pugsy Road, and the town will retain 72 acres. Good. Okay. Oh, I know what I forgot. I forgot my thing.
I have it.
No. You have it? Okay. Now, the entire parcel on Pugsy Road is all the makeup of the colors. The green is the portion will be well, it's there, will be retained by the town. So green remains with the town. The orange color would go to the applicant, and the blue portion is the 10 acres that was cut off, and that's where the county owns that piece of property. Okay. Now on the right-hand side, that's the Star Ridge property. That's the 94.9 acres of open space that the town wants to trade for the orange. Now, don't be compared by the size. It's not intentional. It's just the way we took a picture and put it up there. And if you see up in the right-hand corner, it says 7+ acres. That is a house that's currently on the property, which is being subdivided off. So the county property is 10 acres. The open space is 166.9 acres, an increase of 14 acres, and proposed private recreation would be the 81 acres. Go to the next one. This is the overall view currently without the subdivision. It's the entire parcel. Again, the entire green is all the open space, and the blue is the county's portion. Okay. Now, there's an easement right there that the yellow is an easement which the town would have to access that property from theirs. And there's a road in there going in. You really can't see it. It's right, kind of right in that area there. And that's what is the old Zimmer Road. It was cut off by 84, which is running across the top there. When 84 came in, that cut off the property, so Zimmer Road is on both sides of the road. Next one. Okay. So the remaining open space of the town remains in green. The reddish color is, again, the part that we'll be going to them. Okay. Now, this is the scene of, this is Pugsley Road, and this is the property that, is that Pugsley Road? Yeah. This area here is the swap. Go ahead. Again, the swap property. Again. Now, where you see the road goes here on the right-hand side, right up there is Zimmer Road. So what you see there is what the applicant would be obtaining from the town. Go ahead in. Now, there's some suggestion that this is not feasible because of environmental issues. You can see that we're 1 mile from the Brewster Hill, which is Tenetta Lake, and 1.2 miles from Bogbrook? Mm-hmm. From Bogbrook?
Middle Branch.
Middle Branch?
Yeah.
Okay, Brock was the other one. From Middle Branch. So that's the distance from them. Now, when I show you the other site in a bit, you're going to see that it's equal. One is going to be, of course, Peach Lake, and then Bogbrook. Next. So let me show you what the county property looks like. This here is a county property, which is at the end of the road, and it was 10 acres. It was subdivided off. Okay. Now, they've been dumping up there for quite some time, and right now that's approximately a 20-foot drop. And that area, which I thought was pristine at one point in time, is no longer. Okay. This land swap would generate a net increase of open space land in the town of Southeast by 14 acres. So even though there's a swap, the town of Southeast will end up with more open space than it currently has. If the alienation request is denied, the project is dead. If the alienation is approved, the proposal to improve 81 acres on Pugsley Road as a baseball sports training facility will undergo the same rigorous site plan reviews by the county, town, federal, and state agencies, as in this case with all projects that come before this town. There will be many more public hearings on many levels if it's approved by the state. And all we're doing this evening is having a public hearing. Next Thursday, there's a resolution that's going to come in front of this town board. It will either pass or fail and move up to Albany. And there's a lot of things that happen in Albany, which I'll be touching on shortly. If the alienation, it has been suggested the town should delay the home rule request to allow the alienation swap of these parcels. Delaying this alienation request would serve one purpose, and that would be to deny those that would like more recreational opportunities in the town of Southeast from having them. The New York State Legislature meets only from January to June of each year. If we don't get this request for consideration to the legislature in timely fashion, which in this case is before the end of February, we will lose a year in the blink of an eye. And just to ask a question. A sketch plan of the proposal suggests several big, now this is the applicant. They provided a sketch plan to the town identifying what they had planned to do on the other property, which they would do something similar at this one. And again, the fact that they have no authorization to be there or do anything, they're doing absolutely nothing. Right now, as far as I'm concerned, we are actually doing nothing until it gets sent to the state. If it's approved, it comes back, then that process starts, which could probably take up to 2 years. The proposal called for at the time several big and little league fields. There was 4 of each. Multi-sports fields, there was 3. Batting cages, and a 20,000 to 30,000 indoor complex. And this appears to be something that would resonate well in our community. This project would become a destination site for tourism during the summer, which will add sales tax revenues to the county coffers. There are a lot of kids out there, and you might even have 1 or 2 that have big dreams. I know I did as a kid, and this project has the potential to make some of those dreams come true. Let me provide you with some of my personal experience with home rule requests. Back in 2001, when I was a Putnam County legislator, the county approved 8-1 a home rule request to create a Putnam County Taxing Limousine Commission. It was approved by both the Assembly and State. However, once it was passed by both houses up in Albany, both the Senate and the Assembly said yes to it. It was forwarded to the governor for his final approval, and in this case, the governor vetoed the home rule request, and it never came to fruition. It received a fair disposition of its request, the same fair hearing this home rule request deserves as well. Now, in order for the home rule request to move forward, the town board will first need to vote next Thursday, February 20th, to determine if that will happen. I know how he does. I believe I know Chaim. I haven't talked to my other 2 colleagues, but that's what democracy is. Everyone will make a comment if they choose to, and you'll know where they stand. After our town board meeting on February 6, 2020, Ms. Finizzi was quite upset and adamant that a resolution had already been prepared. Yes, it was. However, that is the standard protocol. Any action taken by a town board, village board, Putnam County board requires either a motion or a resolution be prepared in advance for discussion and an eventual vote. It either passes or it fails. That's Robert's Rules of Order by which most municipalities are governed, and is how we govern our actions here every meeting. That's neither scheming nor conniving. The town board under my watch has been very transparent and inclusive when it comes to public input. Let me share with you some of my own personal experiences with open space issues. Back in 2002, while I was a Putnam County legislator, the county proposed purchasing 199 acres of land in the town of Southeast, Tilly Foster Farm. I don't quite recall the rationale used for the purchase at the time, but it was purchased for $3.9 million. It was approved by the Putnam County Legislature by a 9-0 vote. Also, back in 2003, while I was a Putnam County legislator, the county proposed purchasing 376 acres of land in the town of Carmel. Rumor had it that the land was being considered for an airport, Rumor had it that the land, which consisted of an airport, farm, and golf course, was going to be sold to a developer to build condominiums. The price tag, $11.3 million. It was approved by the Putnam County Legislature by a 63 vote. After it was approved, an amendment was put forward, and 36 of those acres were leased back to the town of Carville. For what purpose? Recreation. And it was there for 99 years. So the town of Southeast is not setting a precedent by mixing open space and recreational fields. Now let's move on to how and why we are here tonight. On December 7, 2004, the Town of Southeast Open Space Advisory Committee had its inaugural meeting. Then, after several meetings on February 22, 2006, the Open Space Committee similarly discussed what we are doing this evening. They were going to request a home rule legislation request that would allow the town to adopt a mechanism which would allow the town to create and build an open space preservation fund by levying a tax on the sale of property within the town. That home rule legislature never pursued, but it would have involved requesting a home rule legislation similar to what we're doing here this evening. Or actually, we're talking about tonight, this evening, and we'll vote next week. On August 2nd, 2006, the Open Space Advisory Committee forwarded language to the town board to put a $5 million bond resolution up for vote, which was subsequently approved by the residents on November 7th, 2006. That referendum authorized to borrow up to $5 million for the purpose of acquiring open space. What I really find ironic about the scheming and fast-tracking charges being leveled by a former member of that very Open Space Advisory Committee and town resident, Ms. Venezzi, is that on January 31, 2007, the Open Space Advisory Committee discussed that Trust for Public Land had an option that would expire by the end of March, and that several hurdles would have to be surmounted, i.e., publicity campaign, public notification in the media, public hearing, by no later than March 8th. They needed to take place within 36 days. However, here we are this evening with the very same challenges they faced, the only exception that we have 17 days to do it. It was okay for them to have done it, but not for us. What we are doing and the speed in which we are doing it is dictated by the New York State legislative process, which we must follow. So this is what the state says we have to do to move it forward, and that's exactly what we are doing. Another interesting fact that can be found in the minutes of the Open Space Advisory Committee held on March 28, 2007, there was some strong discontent of a member of the board who eventually resigned because of it. It stated in the minutes that the resolution adopted by the town board for the acquisition of the UJA property did not reflect the actual resolution adopted by the committee. I also could not find the actual vote, if there was one, taken by that Open Space Committee. However, on May 17, 2007, the town board by resolution authorized the purchase of the land of the United Jewish Appeal, UJA, for $2.2 million. Then on July 2007, 2 months after the town board resolved to purchase the UJA property, 6 of the Open Space Advisory Board members filled out an open space parcel evaluation. 4 of the 6 members indicated that Pugsley Road site had the potential for active recreation. Okay. Now, we're going to go back a bit to the proposed area for the swap. Now, this is Star Ridge Road. Now, you note up on the left-hand side, the top of the screen, this property fronts 2 scenic and historic sites, roads in the town of Southeast. You have to the left, Turk Hill, to the right, Star Ridge Road. That's the house that's being subdivided off in green.
You're blue.
Green is the open space, blue is it. I'm colorblind, right, sorry. Okay, go to the next one. Now, in order to access that property, you'll note at the bottom down here, there's a road kind of going in there now, and there's an area where people can get off the road and do it. I don't see the same thing up on Pugsley Road. Could it be done? Yes, it can, but this is already there. Now, this here shows the house that will be subdivided off that allows the town to get the parcel they're going to obtain. 1,000 feet of road frontage off Star Ridge Road. Same 1,000 feet going the other way. Now, you know, I know we can go back, but the bottom line, we're 1 mile, no, we're 1 mile from the East Branch Reservoir, 1 mile, and only half a mile from Peach Lake. These numbers are less than the other one, so I think the environmental impact is better on this site than even the other site. Now, the other one has maybe more wetlands, but the distance from these branches of roads and rivers and streams and reservoir in this case, and the lake is substantial. Okay, hold on. Now, on November 7, 2007, the purchase was finalized and the town paid $2,245,662.08. This, by the way, leads to yet another ironic situation. In a February 10, 2020 letter from James Brian Bacon, Esquire, state that the Pugsley Road property is twice as valuable as the proposed Star Ridge property. So I went back to the town assessor's office and pulled the value of the Pugsley Road property in 2007. Lot number 10, 94.82 acres, had an assessed valuation of $467. In lot 11, 61.36 acres, had an assessed valuation of $700,000, a combined total of $1,167,000. All town properties, taxable and exempt, are assessed annually at 100% of market value. So in other words, whatever your property is assessed at, it's approximately what you should be able to sell it for. Now, we spoke at our last meeting, and I was made aware a long time ago, even before this even came up, that, before the county wanted to buy this. The legislature said no to the county executive at the time, because one, we already bought the farm, and we already purchased the golf course, so he had already spent a lot of money. He wanted this bad. And bottom line, the legislature said no, enough is enough. I mean, look, we all want open space. As much as I might get blamed, you don't like open space, you don't want, that's not true. But there's a way to do it. And the county spent tons of money, we said no more. He came to the town southeast, and they bought it. So, how did a parcel sell for twice its assessed valuation, $2.2 million back in 2007? By the way, based on 2019 assessed evaluations, lot number 10's current valuation is $789,000, and the other lot number 11 is $313,000, a total of $1.2 million. Now, I understand the new appraisals come forward, which is substantially less than these numbers, but no matter what, it's a far cry from the $2.2 million price that this town paid for that property in 2007. Other interesting facts? I find it ironic that we're all interested in preserving open space, and they carved out 10 of the prime acres to give to good cause, Humane Society, but it was something that was going to be developed. The proposed land swap will not only recoup the lost 10 acres of open space that we lost when they gave it or sold it to the county for the $200,000, but will provide an additional 4 acres. So it's a net increase to the town of 14 acres. Pugsley Road is a seasonal road, in that the proposed land the town wants to swap for has frontage on 2 scenic and historic routes, Star Ridge and Turk Hill. Open space, scenic historic routes are a perfect combination for open space preservation. Contrary to the misinformation being circulated in newspapers and social media, the proposed recreation plan for Pugsley Road site will be privately owned and operated. The town is not involved in any way other than to review it. A sketch plan for Star Ridge Road showed 4 Little League, and I went into that before. So you have batting cages and a building. Again, the project is not contemplated by the town, but by a private company, and they will pay their fair share of taxes like any other development. There's no hanky-panky, no matter what anyone says. Personally, I feel this trade-off will be one that will preserve even more open space due to the fact that 81 acres will be well-manicured fields. Now, if you go to many towns, they have a lot of nice fields. Again, these will not be town fields. Most of the fields we have are been given as gifts to the town. They're all over the place. They would call, in some areas, they call them pocket parks. But 81 acres of well-manicured land, I think to me is open space, but people are arguing and say it is not. Now I'd like to ask the attorney for the owner of Star Ridge property seeking to swap its land for the town owned on Pugsley Road to address the board to further explain to the public, and once your presentation will be complete, we will take public comment. Mr. O'Rourke, you have 10 minutes. Once you have spoken to speak the opportunity and you initiate an additional 5 minutes, you can come back after every person has had an opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board, and members of the public. My name is Richard L. O'Rourke. I'm an attorney with Keenan Bean PC. I've been a resident of the town of Southeast for 45 years, and my daughters played varsity sports at Brewster High School, and one of my daughters was the co-captain of the tennis team. So I have some familiarity with sports. I also had a daughter who played for the Brewster Rockets, which was a travel softball team out of here. Just to correct a misstatement that was made by Ms. Finizzi last time, as well as in an ad, Pro Swing Sports is Dan Gray. He is a former member of the Dodger organization, played professional ball, and has been training young women and children for years down in Mount Kisco, many of whom have gone on to play sports, get scholarships in Division I colleges and universities, and there are Major League ball players that came through the program. They are not developers. They are sportsmen. So I think it's very important that people understand that, because there's been so many misstatements, I don't know where to begin. What pro sports...
I'm getting a little feedback on the system here. Can you back off the microphone?
Sure, certainly. Oh, don't apologize.
I think it was the distance to the microphone.
No, don't speak right into the mic. Give it about a foot, at least.
I have a loud voice, I apologize.
I know.
All right, so, forgive me, I'm sorry. All right, so Pro Sports proposes that it will convey approximately 94.9 acres on Star Ridge Road to the town to be dedicated as open space preservation and passive recreation. The Star Ridge property being on a designated scenic and historic route in a residential area, it makes sense for preserving the land for passive recreation such as walking and hiking trails. In return, the town would convey approximately 81.7 acres of land on Pugsley Road to Pro Swing, leaving the town with ownership of approximately 71.7 acres as open space on Pugsley Road. Therefore, there would be open space on Pugsley Road, there would be open space on Star Ridge Road. The 81 acres that Pro Swing Sports would have on Pugsley Road would be used for active recreation such as softball and baseball fields and training facilities. To accomplish this swap of land, there are many steps, all of which are very public process. And I just want to make clear, again, that notwithstanding all of the misstatements that have been made, there is a deliberative process that precedes anything that happens here. First, as the supervisor has said, the town must authorize that a request be made of the New York State Senate, New York State Assembly, that those legislative bodies adopt the home rule legislation, and the governor must sign the bill. Second, then the town board has to decide whether it will pass a resolution authorizing a contract and sale providing for the land swap. Third, if the town authorizes the land swap, Pro Swing Sports will have to file a site plan application with the town planning board, laying out and engineering the proposed baseball fields, which will include a women's softball field, baseball fields for kids 12 and under, and regulation 60-foot pitching mound, 90-foot bases, baseball diamonds for high school, as well as adult baseball players. Pro Swing has already committed that if and when it reaches the point, that's if and when, it does not own any property, can't file any applications, if and when they were to achieve all of those steps and the ownership of the Pugsley property went to Pro Sports, at that point in time, Pro Swing Sports has already committed to prepare a DEIS, a draft environmental impact statement, which will fully examine the proposed active recreation development. The use of the Pugsley site for recreation is a permitted use in the zoning ordinance and the town comprehensive plan adopted in 2014. Specifically endorses, the comprehensive plan specifically states and endorses public and private cooperation to provide recreational opportunities for the kids and adult residents of this town. The Pugsley Road site and this proposal provides just such an opportunity on properly zoned land right now. And the land that would be developed for the athletic facilities and sports would be returned to the tax roll, and so it would be paying taxes on the property. Kids and young adults who have worked with Dan Gray and with Pro Swing Sports staff have gone on to play Division I college softball and baseball, and some are playing professional baseball and in the major leagues. My understanding from Dan Gray, who unfortunately could not be here tonight, he's with his children, he had a conversation with Rich Anderson, the Brewster Little League president, and was told that Brewster wanted to host a playoff game in Brewster, part of trying to get to the Williamsport, Pennsylvania, for the Little League World Series. The fields were not acceptable, and I am told, and by the intention of Mr. Gray and his colleagues, they want to develop fields that would be of a caliber that are not presently in this town. Sports provide team building, leadership opportunities, and after being a judge for 27 years and seeing the opioid epidemic that exists here and elsewhere, this is an activity that will inure to the benefit of the town, and it's something worthwhile. I also think it's important for us to please allow us a moment for Kathleen Gallagher, one of our consulting landscape architects, to show precisely where the property is, because there seems to be so many misstatements about this. And I know you've tried, but we'll just perhaps bear with us. We'll just make sure everyone understands where this property is and what it is. Thank you.
Still got 5 minutes. But I'm not counting.
3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Kathleen Gallagher with Insight Engineering, Surveying, and Landscape Architecture, PC.
Take the mic in your hand and go on over.
I also have a laser pointer. The proposed alienation is between two properties. The Star Ridge Road property at 273 Star Ridge Road and the Pugsley Road property. The Star Ridge Road property is on our left. The Pugsley Road property is on our right. Starting with Star Ridge, to orient ourselves, north is on my right, your left side of the sheet, this direction, and south is here. Star Ridge Road is along the top portion of the sheet. Interstate 684 is in the bottom left, and Turk Hill Road. The Star Ridge property is one lot, which is approximately 103 acres. The parcel is currently under review by the Planning Board for a subdivision. The application proposes to subdivide one lot into two lots. The first lot of the entire lot is this dark continuous line, and the subdivision subdivides the front portion with the residence from the back portion. We're going to refer to the larger portion as Lot A and the smaller resident as Lot B. This is also more clearly diagrammatically shown on the right, with one lot shown here, two lots shown here, paying in particular attention to the gray parcel.
Not for nothing, I think yours would be better for the public to see.
I'm sorry?
I think those would be better if you want to demonstrate.
Sure.
Because everybody could see, way in the back probably can't see what you're doing. Does it
I don't
work
think
that?
my laser pointer goes to there, but,
I'll track along.
oh,
Yeah.
wonderful. So the front parcel is the blue area, and the back parcel, which is the green area. So Lot B is the front parcel, Lot A is the back parcel, as shown on the final subdivision, which is currently under review at the Planning Board. Lot A is approximately 95 acres, Lot B is approximately 8 acres. Lot B, the smaller lot, as mentioned before, is the lot with the residence. Once the residence is subdivided out, the remaining lot, Lot B, is the area proposed to be part of the alienation. The lot incorporates a large forested area throughout the center of the site, which is located on a sloping hill. At the bottom of that hill is a New York State DEC regulated wetland and town regulated wetland, which is on the west side of the property to the left.
2 minutes.
Pugsley Road, which is on this right portion, I'm going to talk about 4 areas, and this is in some of the documentation that people have seen, and there's been some confusion about the different tax parcels, but there's really 4 areas that's of interest here. Area 1 is the area to the left, which is 160 Pugsley Road. That's tax parcel which you've heard people reference to as 10. Area 2 is to the right, which is 132 Pugsley Road. That tax parcel is what people refer to as 11. And then there are 2 smaller parcels right in the middle of the intersection where Pugsley and Fields Corner intersect with each other. And there are 2 small areas in that place, which is part of the legal deed that is currently on file for this property. The reason that that was included in the original deed when the land was transferred is because the logistic project potentially is going to straighten out Pugsley Road, and when that happens, those 2 smaller areas will then merge into the larger areas on either side, and that's on a separate tax parcel, which is 4515.3, which is where some of the confusion was. The Pugsley property is separated by an easement in favor of the county down the middle. The majority of the site is forested with a town-regulated ridgeline protection area to the northeast, so on the left or up-hand corner of the property, and town and DEC-regulated wetlands, as well as DEP and town-regulated watercourses, which are on the right side of the property on the south side. The ridgeline area is about 27 acres, and the wetland area is about 45 acres, and those 2 areas is what is potentially going to remain parkland, which is the area shown in green. That leaves the area of alienation shown in the orange as the 81 acres that people have been mentioning. So
Time to wrap it up.
the 2 areas that are proposed as part of the alienation is the 95 acres, this large parcel on Star Ridge, and the 81 acres, which is the center and orange parcel shown on the property on the graphic in front of us. Thank
Again,
you.
once everyone had an opportunity to speak, if you need to come back for additional 5 minutes, you'll be granted. Thank you. Public comment? Yes. When you come up, just state your name, please.
My name is Don Matuzis, and I've been a resident of Southeast for 25 years. And I remember when we bought the original parcel on Pugsley Road, I thought there should have been a state investigation, because why in the world would somebody buy open space land right along a major highway? Who's going to use it? Does anybody use it? I hardly think so. The road is closed most of the time. So what we're going to do now is we are going to take the best part of that parcel, which is away from the highway, and trade it for a swamp, mostly, on Star Ridge Road, because if you look at this lower area down here, this is almost all wetlands. The only good part of this parcel is up here, you know, which, I'm sorry, I can't show it there, but there's only maybe 20 or 30 acres. That's any good of the 94 acres that are shown here. I think we're jumping from the frying pan into the fire on an even swap with something like this. The soils, Insight will probably be able to tell you, on Starbridge Road are all clay. They don't perk. So you look at $100,000 septic systems. So how much subdivision value is there? The property recently sold for $1.2 million. We're going to trade a house that's 8,000 square feet, which is the bulk of the value of that property. So we're getting $300,000 worth of property for something we paid $2 million for. I think we got to really look closely at this deal.
Thank you. As speakers want to come up, if you come up, well, yeah, go ahead. Go.
Samantha Woodgate. I live on 175 Shore Drive. So I'm curious, why did the developer buy the property on Star Ridge Road?
Do you want that part of your 10 minutes? Or you want to just finish and he'll write down the comment and come back to you?
Okay. Then my next question would be, so we're looking at putting a facility in with a warehouse. I do believe it's somewhere close to this property, though I'm not sure which lot. And we're looking at 372 semi-trucks a day, right next to a facility that is going to be having kids and young adults driving with semi-truck trailers. Seems like a very poor mix to me. And then my next question would be, Patterson doesn't want Pugsley Road to be opened. So they want to have a gate to have it closed. So if we're going to put a family facility in, we're going to have to open Pugsley Road, because I'm sure people from Patterson are going to want to access it. So I'm curious to what Patterson thinks about this. My biggest concern in all of this is we're mixing families with trucks, and we're not bringing that topic up. We're also adding more traffic onto 312. Can Pugsley hold all of that? Which we're assuming yes, because we're doing this swap, but nobody's asking those questions. Well, you know what? Patterson didn't want to have Pugsley open because they're concerned about cut-through traffic. So they have requested that Pugsley have a gate maintained to stop cut-through traffic. This is on the warehouse they want to build, right? So we're going to have potentially, this is up in the air, 372 semi-trucks a day that are going to access 312. So Patterson doesn't want the cut-through traffic. They don't want to maintain the road. So who's going to take all of that on? Thank you.
Rick, do you want to answer that one question, the first one about can you answer that quick?
Sure.
Just one question there?
All right. The question asked was, why did they purchase the property on Star Ridge Road? It's a very good question, and I'm going to tell you. What happened was Jack Briganti, who's here this evening, Dan Gray, who, as I said earlier, played in the Dodger organization, played professional ball. They bought the property on Star Ridge Road and actually, as the supervisor said, developed a sketch in terms of how they could lay out baseball diamonds on the Star Ridge Road property. And what then happened was they contacted me and asked me if I would help them and assist them in terms of any proposal for the sports complex. I have to tell you, I met with them and I said, you're not going to be able to get this done. I said that with regard to the property on Star Ridge, while recreation is a specially permitted use, which means that not only must you get approval from the planning board, but also a special permit from the town board, and knowing that it was in the middle of a very residential area, and recognizing that the property was on an historic and scenic site road, that I thought it was impossible. Nevertheless, they had scheduled a meeting with planning staff. We went to the meeting, they discussed it, and to no one's surprise, because I had told them, I said, listen, this is not going to go. I just have to tell you, it's just not going to work. Star Ridge is not the place. A discussion ensued about, well, where could we do a complex like this? Where is this property, where is their property zoned where a complex like this could be a principal permitted use? We looked at the zoning ordinance of the town of Southeast, and the property that is zoned rural commercial has as a permitted use as of right recreation. Recreation is defined in the zoning ordinance, and precisely what they were proposing is a principal permitted use as of right under zoning. A discussion ensued, looked at where the properties were that were zoned rural commercial. One of the properties was on Pugsley Road. We took a look at the property, examined it, realized that there are no walking trails. The property borders I-84. The property is on Pugsley Road. It has not been developed. We recognize that the town is paying debt maintenance of $166,000 a year on this property. And the thought process was, well, you know what? It's zoned for rural commercial, and there is a segment and a portion of it that could be developed for the complex.
1 minute.
And with that, that's how we went from Star Ridge Road to Pugsley Road. And it made sense. We discussed it, as I said, at a planning staff meeting. And with that, the thought process occurred. Let's try to see if we could do an alienation of the property. That's how we got there. There was another question that was asked, but I'll wait. You don't want me to respond to it, but I'll wait.
You got about 30 seconds. You want to finish your time?
Yeah, can you just answer for the microphone? So the developer...
Come up to the mic. Can you come up so they can hear you as well?
You know, I wish we would refrain from saying a developer. I just told you that these people are not real estate developers.
I use the word
They're
developer.
athletic people.
I'm wondering if the property owner bought the property and then came to you and wanted a solution to this problem? Or did they buy the property knowing they weren't going to get the zoning change? I'm just curious because I feel like we're bailing them out. How many of us as residents get to buy a piece of property and then figure out we're not going to get what we're going to get, and we come to the town and ask them to bail us out?
If you can take a few seconds, yes. Try to the best you can.
There's a fundamental misunderstanding. It's not a zone change. It's not a zone change. A recreational complex is a permitted use by special permit on Star Ridge Road. A recreational complex is a principal permitted use. You don't have to get the special permit, but nevertheless, it is, the zoning is there, a use as of right. It's not a zone change.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Ma'am?
Yeah, I'm just asking, did he buy the property and then figured out he wasn't going to get a zoning change? Yes or no? Well, I'm asking.
Okay, ma'am. It's not a zone change.
You
Okay,
haven't.
ma'am.
Sir, there's
No, no, sir, that's a line,
Hi, my name is Lisa Orello. I live at 14 Old Route 6 in Brewster. My point is that, first of all, most of us who buy the land in a wrong, if that doesn't work out, we would have to sell it and buy land where it would work out. I can't imagine, swapping land, but that land wasn't for sale. It was open space. And with all due respect, Mr. Hay and members of the board, it may be equal space to you, Star Ridge Road and Pugsley Road, but for me, I live in the immediate vicinity of Pugsley Road, and we are under constant pressure of development. Traffic and pollution, cars constantly, it's terrible. So, it is not equal to me. We thought we had a certain amount of space designated as open space that wouldn't be developed. Now we have this logistics center bearing down on us, and now a sports complex. And what happens if the sports complex fails? Then we're going to have another empty building or some other project. Because isn't there a sports complex that is going empty in the town? Mm-hmm. That's what I've heard, right? Okay, so I rest my case, but it would be nice if people would consider the quality of life of the people in that area. I know the people in the Star Ridge area are much wealthier, so that might be a consideration. But
ladies and gentlemen, please hold it down.
it just seems like economic discrimination to some extent to me, because that area isn't as wealthy and we get all the garbage. So, thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Alex Mazzata, lifelong Town of Southeast resident, lifelong baseball fan, and I'm now a father. This is my son Gaetano. I coach him in Brewster Little League. His friend Ryan is in the background over there. I coach him as well. And I gotta say that coaching baseball is by far the most gratifying part of most of my days in the season, just to be able to spend time with these kids and know that they're in an element where they get to enjoy fresh air, camaraderie, team building, all that stuff. That is, it's hard to do today in today's day and age with competing technologies and keeping children's attentions. And we all know how difficult it is today and how much harder it is to raise kids. So when I heard about this concept and this idea of bringing this to our community and having the potential for, you know, our children or any children, it doesn't even have to be the town of Southeast children's, to have this opportunity, this haven to go to, right, an escape. I thought it was tremendous. So I know there's a lot of back and forth about, you know, wheeling and dealing and all that, but the essence of it really is providing children, such as my son, such as any of your daughters, sons out there, giving them an outlet and just letting them escape somewhere. We're not talking about development, we're not talking about big box stores, we're not talking about all those things here. We're just simply talking about providing you know, a space for these kids just to have fun, be children until they grow up, and then they end up in debates like this when they're grown up. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, my name is Kathy Chidina. I've been a resident of Brewster for about 30 years now. I raised 4 girls here. They all played sports. Softball was their thing. 2 of them went on and played, one is going to be playing competitively, the other one finished playing competitively in college. And we had to travel far to get quality training for them. And I have personal experience with Pro Swing. They're a quality organization. I've also dealt with Frozen Ropes and some of the other ones, and to have a place like this come to Brewster is huge. It really is. It will bring it will enhance the kids' level of play. I've actually talked to them, and they really want to work with Brewster Little League, and they want to help them provide something that they weren't able to do before with a lot of their like World Series type games and things like that, and I think that is a fabulous thing. I mean, we all want the best for our kids. I wish I had that when they were growing up. My kids played in the Golf Dome that was up on 22, and when that went, there's nowhere to go. So where do you go? You know, you have to travel far. We were traveling up to Queensbury to play in a dome. You know, to be able to have those fields is just, I think it's a win-win for everybody. You know, that's just my opinion, but 4 kids going through this school, me living here, I played sports my whole life. My kids played on the Brewster Rockets also. It's a great thing for us as a community to have. It will bring people coming here. They'll be shopping at stores and things like that because they're going to go to tournaments at this thing. It'll be great. So, just my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joe Dash. I live in Fox Run. I'm a lifelong resident of the Lake Carmel-Brewster area. I'd like to say I did move away for a while. I lived in the city. I wonder how many people in this audience, I happen to know because I'm there very frequently at the courthouse in the Bronx on the Grand Concourse. I'd like to know how many of you would buy property a block away from Yankee Stadium to be close to a baseball field. Anybody? That's right. Probably none of you. Have you ever been in that area and seen the congestion getting on and off the Deegan Expressway? I have been down Pugsley Road, and I've been there recently. I've walked that road. I have seen bear, deer, bald eagles, possums, raccoons, red-tailed hawks, and that's just scratching the surface of what's there. Because I'm making a lot of noise. You walk quietly, and you'd see 10 times as much wildlife as that. Now, I've coached children in primitive skills. How to make a fire without a match. How to build a shelter if you're ever out after dark and you can't get home. An emergency shelter. I've taught how to find wild edible plants, how to find water in a survival situation. You want to get outside and you want to breathe the air? You want to be in a glorious situation? You do that. You don't need a trail to walk that property. I've walked the Great Swamp without a trail. I've walked down the streams. You don't need a trail to do that. I would refer all of you to the book, Last Child in the Wilderness. The very first chapter of that book, the author points out, his son comes to him and says, "Hey, Dad, how come things aren't as fun as it used to be when you were a kid?" I said, "What are you talking about? You guys got everything. You got video games, TV, cell phones, baseball bats, basketballs." I said, "Oh, I'm not talking about that, Dad. I'm talking about when you used to take your horse down to the stream and swing off the rope and jump into the water. Remember you used to tell us that? How you rode up into the ridge and watched the sunset?" And he realized that his kids were very aware of how they had been completely cut out from the real things that are worthwhile. When I was growing up here, that's why we were here. And now I've seen it become more and more congested, more and more developed. Just go over to Danbury. Route 6, they did the classic build first, plan later. You can't even get off, you can't even get out one of those shopping centers because the traffic is bumper to bumper down Route 6. Is that gonna happen here? I don't know, but we're destroying a piece of property that the citizens of this town have said, no, this is open space and that's the way we want to keep it. And now we're saying, let's build baseball fields. Why isn't this project being done in the hamlet? Why isn't it being built in the hamlet of Carmel or Brewster or somewhere else where there's already high-intensity development? If they're going to say there's not enough space, I find that hard to believe when I look up at all the condominiums that have been built around here. I really find that hard to believe. So, thank you very much.
Hi, Alicia Russo. I'm at 102 Fields Corner Road, and I just want to clarify where the attorney said there's no walking trails back there. There is. They're not manicured, but there is walking trails. And one of the reasons I moved up here from White Plains myself was because it was rural. It was a warm environment. And we're talking about baseball, which, coming from White Plains, my whole family played baseball. But why are we discriminating against the other sports? The hunters go back there, there's ATV riders, there's sometimes even horses. And when you talk about the animals, yes, there's bears, there's deer, there's turkey, there's lynx, and they're beautiful to see. You don't bother them, they don't bother you, but it's gorgeous to see along the trails. And yes, there are kids that do go back there and build forts. My son and his friends being one of them. They did enjoy playing in the woods and enjoying the trails and walking the dogs. So there is a lot of that back there, and I'm sad that we're ignoring the other sports that are available and that are being used in that space. The other question I actually have is too, there's historical walls back there from the Burdick Farms, some 200 years old. I thought those were supposed to be preserved, the stone walls. I'm not sure what the law is on that or what the code is on that, but there's a ton of them back there. And you talk about the Golf Dome, the young lady, and the Brewster Sports Complex. Those all failed. Brewster Sports was sold for storage, which I guess would be great with the warehouses going in. They would certainly complement one another. I understand you're doing the fields. I'm very, very familiar with Pro Swing. I actually have worked with you guys. You have a very respectable facility, but respectable doesn't go a long way when there's not the demand for what the product is. So I'm extremely concerned, and I'm extremely concerned with the setup for obvious reasons. That's it. Thank
The
you.
gentleman with the hat, you're gonna have to wait a bit because we have to go through the entire public hearing and you come back up again? No, I just wanted I didn't want him to stand there. He'll get a turn again in a bit. Well, I know, but we set the rules to begin with. You get 10 minutes, and then you come back for 5 if you'd like.
I'm new at this.
Not a problem.
Let me start by saying to you.
Come a little bit
also-
closer to the mic.
I'm sorry?
Come a little closer to the mic, but
Okay. Is
the
that
mic.
better?
No, the mic.
All right. I
Yes.
just didn't want to overtake it. My name is Barbara Mundy. I live at 802 Chestnut Drive. I'm in Hunter's Glen. Let me say, I have nothing against baseball. My sons played baseball. They loved it. But I do have a question about your company, and perhaps you could help me. This plan that you're proposing.
Ma'am, you have to talk into the mic a little bit because people
I'm
hear.
doing the best I can. It's my first time.
Okay,
so-
no, I'm just
okay.
trying to,
Do you want me to move it? Is that better? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
you want
thank
everyone to hear you.
Okay. So my question is, for the proposal, we're talking about open space. We're talking about children being able to come and play. But my experience with my sons in playing ball, there's usually a fee for this. So you go, you have like a coach, someone works with you, they analyze you, they measure your ability to throw, your speed, they help you. So this isn't something for the average person, necessarily. It takes money. I know I paid it. So I'm not, so let's start there. It's not just an open area where people are going to come and frolic. There's a cost to this, to be able to have your child coached. And it's not inexpensive. And it is business. It's not just a type of philanthropy. So I think we need to get that out there. The second thing that I'd like to say is, if we're talking about children and we're worried about children, why in God's name would we mix a sports complex, open air, with a logistics center? It doesn't make any sense to me. And I'm new here. And I came here because I thought it was beautiful and open and gorgeous. And now, in a year and a half, my life is upended by this. But that's not a problem. That's a risk I took and I live with, just like you took a risk when you bought that land. I'm living with that risk. You need to live with yours. I don't need to have it magnified. So that's my third point. Regarding, just to step back a little bit further to the logistics center, I just recently made it up to Fishkill. As I said, I'm new here. I don't know, I've been exploring areas. I was amazed. In Fishkill, they have a logistics center. Who knew? But yet, and maybe I'm not quoting the exact point, because again, I'm new. I'm sorry if it's ignorance. And what a great thing. They stuck it in a commercial area. And those trucks didn't have to go through all the streets and in and out to get to the highway. I understand that you have a big responsibility. And what you're trying to do is bring income into a town that maybe isn't getting income. And I get that. It would be easy to say, oh, you're just doing this because you're trying to take care of a responsibility. But maybe together, all of us could work and try to take care of this responsibility, maybe in a different manner. And that's all I have to say. I'm not criticizing anybody. Lord knows I'm not an expert on this. But maybe a little common sense and a little bit more give and take. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ann Finizzi, and I want to thank the residents of this community for coming out to a hastily announced public hearing. Thank you very much. Since my name was taken in vain so many times, I thought that I would sort of give a little history. I have over here the copy of the Putnam Press of 2004. I'm sort of a little pack rat, and it says in 2004, Southeast forms Open Space Advisory Committee. And why was this committee formed? The overall goal is that of protection, said Supervisor John Dunford. The creation of the Open Space Advisory Committee is the first such committee in the county. We were the stars. We were the stars of open space. There was no one in the county that did what the town of Southeast did, and which Supervisor Tony Hay denigrates. We were willing to protect our natural environment, but we put our money where our mouth was. We did incur a slight tax increase to protect our environment. And it shows, and this is what Councilman Richard Honeck then said, and it shows our constituents just how dedicated this town board is to the preservation of our rural heritage. This was 2004. Have things changed so much in 16 years that we can bait and switch, because this is what it is. It's a bait and switch. One property for another. Make no mistake about it. Now, Mr. Hay also indicated, taking a leaf from Attorney O'Rourke, that the Open Space Committee, by majority, agreed that it would be active recreation on this property. Well, actually what happened, and I have all of the Open Space Committee people, and what happened was that we did discuss it, and we were somewhat divided, okay? Two of us absolutely said no, but one person said potential but not assured. So that what happened with the Open Space Committee was not a majority, as Mr. O'Rourke indicated at the last meeting, but it was 2, and a maybe, okay? Now, what did the Open Space Committee do? In every single piece of property, we had a reputable person come to analyze the land. We discussed it in committee. Residents discussed it. We have just, we have 1 week to discuss this. This developer, and I call him a developer, even though Mr. O'Rourke would like to call him a sportsman. He's a developer, make no bones about it. They went before the planning board, July 13th, July 27th. And here are the minutes. And none of the presentation, none of the minutes show that there was any idea of having anything preserved on that land for anybody.
Ms. Finizzi,
Not for anybody. And I have the minutes of the...
You're too close to the mic, so it won't be able to hear.
Am I too close to the mic?
Yeah, they won't be able to hear.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. And Mr. O'Rourke said that this is an application just to create a 2-lot subdivision. And as a matter of fact, I had seen the agenda, and I really bemoaned the fact that here we would have another development on Star Ridge. By the way, I want to ask Mr. O'Rourke, and maybe Supervisor Hay knows, has Star Ridge Road been officially declared an historic and scenic road as per the town of Southeast
Yes.
regulations?
Yes.
Is that the actual actual designation of that
Yes, I
road?
have it in my office. If you want me to go get it, I can do it.
No,
now.
no, I'm going to take your word for it.
There's somebody here from Historic Sites
It was
that
a
can
question that,
speak to it, too.
it was a question that I had. The other thing is that last week, when I was here at the workshop meeting, Mr. Bell asked specifically, what is going to be built or done with the property on Pugsley Road? Mr. O'Rourke said, and you can view this on the video, first we have to get the land, and then we'll talk about what's going to be on it. Because Mr. Bell said, is it going to be a dome? Is it going to be cages? Is it going to be this? It was going to be that? And Mr. O'Rourke feigned ignorance. He didn't know. And you can watch this on the video. So it's not that I'm making this up. The other thing I wish to point out is that we also, as an open space committee, saved Ryder Farm. Were it not for this town and its residents being mindful and being able to put in their own money, Ryder Farm would not be there. And I have the resolution, and the resolution reads that it was upon the advice of the Open Space Committee. In other words, the town at that particular time, and look how different things are, valued the opinion of the residents.
2 minutes.
They valued the opinion of the residents, not only for Ryder Farm, and we used, by the way, $325,000 of that money. Additionally, we used $5,000 to engage a biodiversity expert, Michael Clemens, to come and appraise the property that we were looking at, which at that time was Haynes Pond. So that money was well used, and we did not make any decision unless we had evidence behind us. Now, I want to know who appraised environmentally that property on Star Ridge. Who did that? What group of residents got together and said, wow, you know what?
1 minute.
Excuse me, I want to finish my sentence.
I'm just telling you, you got 1 minute.
And didn't you give Ms. Gallagher, who did you give, 5 minutes more?
No.
No? Yes, you did.
No, ma'am.
Yes, you did. Anyway, so no one has gone on that property and appraised it in terms of its environmental value, in terms of its value for active or passive recreation. The developer now says, tonight, a public hearing. All of this should have been discussed in November, December, January, so that the residents of this town could absorb the information that has been given. And so now, in 30 minutes or 1 hour, we are expected, they are expected to make a decision. And I asked the board to maintain this public hearing.
Will you recognize the chair or not?
Excuse me?
Will you recognize the chair?
I didn't.
Every speaker is entitled to 10 minutes. You can come back for 5 more after everyone had an opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We need another meeting.
My name is Craig Cole. I live on Star Ridge Road. I think I'm the only one who's spoken about that area. I don't know if
Sorry, Craig, can you take the mic up a little bit?
I don't know if you'd like to put that map back up.
Storage.
I've lived in the town for 10 years. I bought the property that you see to the south of the blue box up there. I'm completely surrounded by the proposed either future development, which the counselor for the sports group mentioned was going to be difficult. Don Matusik, who represented the Finchins, so I bought the property from 10 years ago, also is very familiar with the land in and around there. I'm just coming from a standpoint of Star Ridge. I haven't lived here long enough. I don't know what the impact over on Pugsley Road is. I don't know. I'm certainly sensitive to that. Haven't been involved in homeowners associations in the former town I lived in. So I'm interested in that and interested in learning it, whether it's a proper swap. It seems to me the zoning on Star Ridge versus the zoning over on Pugsley are totally different, and so I commend the board in at least trying to do something that would make sense from a zoning standpoint and maybe a financial benefit to the town. But I don't understand the impact over on Pugsley, so I'm not going to speak to that. I will speak to Star Ridge. That property behind there I'm very familiar with because the former owner was a friend of mine, and we used to walk the property a lot. Don is correct. There's some wetlands back there on the west side, but there's also all along Star Ridge and then back in where you're not into the wetlands, there's some beautiful walking trails. It would make a wonderful open space. Personally, that would benefit me. I'm not going to stand here and tell you it wouldn't. I'd love to be surrounded by open space. Who wouldn't be? I have been surrounded by open space for the last 10 years because that land with the slope, with the wetlands, and being on a historic road, which it is historic, I can attest to that, because as Don will tell you, I had to go in front of the Architectural Review Committee about 2 days before I bought the property when I was told all of a sudden at the last moment that it was a historic house and it was a historic road. So I had to present wood and rocks to show how I was going to renovate a 100-year-old built home that was falling apart. I can't imagine a sports facility going in there. I don't know how they'd show up in front of the Architectural Review Board because some of those boards were pretty tough that we had to go in front of to renovate the Finchin property. So the last thing I would just like to say is I don't know whether this is the right swap. At first, upon hearing it, I thought it made a lot of sense. I'm learning more about it now, but that land there is not suitable for major development. It would be very suitable for open space. The southern part of that green area that you see, as was described by the board, connects right to a road that goes right down into the Finchin Preserve. The people that donated all that land down through there, the Peach Lake Reserve, so it all would connect into one of the largest, I would believe, open space areas in the county. I know that because I had discussions with the Westchester and the Land Trust about doing this very same thing when the house was for sale a couple of years ago. So from a Star Ridge standpoint, this makes a lot of sense. There's all sorts of setback requirements in historic land. There's also, and it's just not suitable for any sort of major development. I can tell you from the slopes and then going down to the wetlands. And Don can talk about it further. And Richard lives in the area as well too. The counselor here representing the sports, he knows the area. So I'm speaking to that. Whether this is the right swap, I can't speak to the other land, but the development of that land would be very difficult and would not be in nature of a historic road, one of the few that we have that's been around with for hundreds of years, and any sort of major development there, would destroy the bucolic nature of that area as well too. And once again, I'm not familiar with Pugsley. To me, that seems like maybe it is more of a commercial area, but I'm sensitive to people that live over there, and maybe it's not. I'm seeing head shake. I want to inform myself on it. But I guess I'll give my remaining time to...
Well, that can't be done. She'll have 5 minutes at the end after everyone had an opportunity to speak.
Hi, I'm Peter Bell. I've been listening to everything that's been said, and I'm glad the gentleman that was just up here spoke about that particular piece of property. It would make a beautiful open space lot. Now, things that I've heard about the Pugsley bother me tremendously. One of them is one woman had said that you have to worry about you have to worry about the other sports. And she was talking about ATVing and how ATVing is being done at the Pugsley site. In addition to that, how kids are building forts on the Pugsley site.
Well, there's gonna be enforcement out there soon.
Well, that's my concern.
We were unaware of it.
Because we, in the town of Southeast, on, road with all the commercial buildings coming off the highway.
Fields Lane.
Fields. Fields Lane, for years, there were problems with ATVs. And they finally stopped it by putting up monster blocks across the road because of the liability. So what I'm hearing from this lady is that there is liability to the town if this site is being used for ATVs. And this property on Starbridge Road is so much more calm, relaxed, so much, it's preferred for open space, in my opinion, than Pugsley Road is. Especially if they get the new construction that's going to go on up there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Hi, my name is Deborah Dillon. I've been a resident of Hunters Glen for the past 10 years and a resident of Putnam County since 1990. I learned only this afternoon about this proposed swap, so I can't say I had a great deal of time to read what was on the town's website concerning it, but what I did see were some documents that talked about a zoning change for the type of zoning that this parcel would fall into on Pugsley Road. To permit additional uses such as a shooting range.
No, that's not true, ma'am.
That was part of it was one of the schedules to what was submitted with respect to this property. So there is no proposed zoning, change to the zoning law for the...
There is, but not for this, it's in general. This is not what this proposal is calling for.
No, I understand that.
The town is proposing something, yes, but it has nothing to do with the site.
But it's for an RC parcel, which would be the parcel on Pugsley Road, isn't that right?
It could be, but that's not what this was about.
Well, it's currently zoned as an RC parcel, I
Yes.
believe. And the change that I saw proposed to the law would be to permit certain uses of that type of parcel, like the one on Pugsley Road, that would include things like go-kart tracks and open outside shooting ranges. So if the change in the zoning law were permitted, this parcel on Pugsley Road would be permitted to have those sorts of uses?
Okay, if you want, I take 1 second of your time. If we were to, I would never consider that, ever. I would not have any interest in ever doing that. I wouldn't be supporting what's being proposed if that were to happen.
Okay.
But could it happen? Not with this particular parcel, because if we're doing it, it is for this sports complex and nothing more, and there's no shooting range involved.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I am Bradley Schwartz. I live in Storage Manor, which is a community of 98 houses directly across Storage Road from the proposed open space. I'd like to say that I think this would be a tremendous asset to the area. It's a wonderful property with nice views. However, I have serious concerns about whether this land swap is in the best interest of the town. It would certainly benefit me, but I question whether it would benefit the town. One thing I would like to point out is that in some of the written statements, it says that this is in proximity to land owned by the Putnam County Land Trust, and people should be aware that there is no access to the Land Trust property off of Seven Oaks Lane, which is the road that is directly opposite the proposed open space. The Land Trust does not own property on Seven Oaks Lane. So in order to access that property, you would probably have to drive to Cobb Road and park there. Secondly, you cannot park a car on Star-Ridge Road. So if a person wanted to use this property for passive recreation, go on a hike or whatever, there is no place for them to park there. So to think that this is going to be accessible to the public, if it's going to be accessible to the public, the town would have to install some type of a small parking area for people to access that property. And I'd like to note that there have been no improvements whatsoever that I'm aware of on the Pugsley Road property. If you go out there, there are no signs indicating where private property ends and the public open space is. You could just go off into the woods on a hike and be on someone's private property or on the public land. So those are considerations that have to be taken if this is going to be made into an open space. The other thing I'd like to say is that there is a large, as we talked about, there's a large tract of land in that area owned by Putnam County Land Trust, and also the Ryder Farm was mentioned. These are essentially open spaces which are an asset to that part of town. Finally, I think just in summary, the key question is this: are the 95 acres on Star Ridge Road that are proposed for the swap of equal or greater value as open space than the 82 acres that we're considering swapping on the Pugsley Road property? And it's been pointed out, what are the potential developments on both of these pieces of property? You have the Pugsley Road property, which is obviously in a commercial area, which could be heavily developed, but the Star Ridge property has been pointed out is not a piece of property that can be heavily developed. So in a case where that were developed, I question what would really go in there. A number of houses, perhaps, whatever, and it would probably most likely remain mostly open space anyway. So I really question, in terms of a land swap, whether the town is gaining anything in open space or perhaps losing open space by doing this. And finally, I would just like to ask the question, which doesn't have to can be answered later. Is ProSwing, or has the ProSwing company considered just purchasing another piece of property on the open market? It just seems odd to me that they would go to the town and consider a land swap in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Donna Relier. I live on Minor Road. I wasn't here last week, so I apologize. I missed probably some of the discussion about, maybe you didn't discuss how much of a facility this is going to be. Are there going to be like lights and things so that this will be open at night? Did you talk about that last week?
No, Donna, what the problem with this is, they don't own their property unless, once they go to the state, if the donation goes through, the state says yes, then it will go through a full environmental review, and they will propose a plan. If they spent money now, they'd be wasting their money because they don't know what's even going to go through.
Okay.
It's a proposal.
So we don't know?
No, we have nothing. They had a proposal for the site that they're on Star Ridge, which had certain aspects of it, but what they proposed there, the terrain may not be the same, so it may change.
Okay.
But they have, right now, they can't put a proposal together for the Pugsley Road property because they don't own it and they might be wasting their time.
Okay. The logistics, I don't know where that project stands. Is the assumption going to be made that that road will be paved by the town?
No, the road will be paved by the developer in this case, and not the one we're speaking of, but the developer of Interstate Logistics.
Okay, because I'm assuming that will have to be done and then maintained, because with all those trucks, I can imagine every year that road is going to be an issue. I guess I'm way ahead of the game here. My concern is living off of 312. The traffic, ever since we got Home Depot and all those businesses, has become horrendous. I live right there on the bad curve. The trucks that come through there now are just beyond belief. once that trucking facility opens up, I expect that'll get worse, even though people say they're going to get right back on the highway. I don't think that's going to happen. And now my other concern is if you put in something like this, how much more traffic is going to come across that road when all these families are looking for McDonald's and Burger King, and, you know, so I'm a little concerned about how much more traffic we're going to throw on that road. But I understand at this point you can't really discuss that. I will say, as far as Pugsley Road, I joined the Open Space Committee after that was purchased, and we did not buy any more property, obviously, after that. A few of us had gotten together and went to the property to see if we could get some walking trails for people and stuff. I found it impossible to even get in and out of there. I personally don't think it lends itself to walking trails and things without a big expense by the town to provide that. There's no way to get in and out of there. It drops off quite a bit, and it's totally overgrown. So I don't know what this other property looks like, but from the pictures, it looks like it at least would be easier to do something of that nature. And then my only last question, again, we haven't done this, but you're going to get another, what, 12 or 13 acres in exchange?
14.
We would gain 14 acres.
Okay, well, that's also going to come off the tax rolls, right?
We're going to come off the tax rolls.
Not by much. Because the house is the primary value of that property on the Star.
Well, but the house is going to be split off.
Yeah, but that will still be paying taxes, so the bulk of the value will still take.
Yeah, I agree. The assessed value of taxable properties will increase as a result of this.
But my point is you're going to lose another 14 acres or so off the tax rolls. You know, that was...
From an acreage perspective?
Yeah.
Yes, but there'll be a...
But proportionately, it won't be...
There'll be a significant increase in tax revenue to the town because there'll be more taxable assessed value in the town.
Well, I'm just speaking strictly, because that was one of the complaints about the open space, is that when you buy that, that comes off the tax rolls.
But the other property would come onto the tax rolls.
But less property.
Less property, but the assessed value would be higher, so it would generate more tax revenue.
Okay,
it would actually,
so
it's not more tax revenue, but it would lower the tax levy to all the other
well, it would
taxpayers.
potentially be a wash.
It would be a net. It would present more tax revenue and help offset the taxes.
Okay.
This would, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor and members of the board. My name is Jim Bacon. I'm here representing Ricky Furman and Ann Finizzi. I'd like to make 3 points, and the board got my letter that I sent in earlier this week. 3 points on fiscal, environmental issues, and public participation. As they relate to the public trust doctrine. Now, the supervisor made the point earlier that there might be some more appraisals coming in on these properties. I think that typically the public trust doctrine would like to see certified appraisals for both of these parcels. And specifically the appraisals on whoever it's done by the McGraths or whoever it is, they should look at the developability of both parcels. Obviously, the Pugsley parcel is much more developable. It's, I think most of the proposed use has no wetlands or slopes. And I'm not sure about the soils, but the Star Ridge Road property has a lot of slopes and quite a few wetlands, according to the environmental resource mapper that's kept by DEC on their website. So those issues should be taken into account. Really, a build-out analysis should be done of both parcels, and I think you'll find that the Pugsley Road parcel is quite a bit more valuable from a fiscal standpoint. And I know that was an awfully high price, $2.2 million to pay back in 2007, but that's what the voters authorized you to do, and you followed the will of the voters who approved that bond. I don't know about the circumstances of the bond or who made those arrangements, but it was backed by the public and by the Open Space Committee. And as the supervisor had mentioned, right now the land for the Star Ridge property, just the land is assessed at about $330,000. If that's 100% of value, the Pugsley Road property is over $700,000. So it's right on the books. It's more than twice the value in comparison. With regard to the environmental attributes, Ms. Finizzi discussed earlier that when the committee was considering the Haynes Pond proposal, which I was very familiar with, they had Michael Clemens go and do an environmental inventory of that site. That really should be done for both of these sites as well, so that if there are environmental attributes of the Star Ridge property, then that could be compared to the Pugsley Road parcel. But one thing that the Pugsley Road parcel has that Star Ridge does not is connections to other open space. And in fact, there's 81 acres, I think, of county-owned land right at the Patterson border. And then south of the Pugsley Road parcel, there's property that's owned by Putnam Seabury, about 52 acres, but most of that is wetlands and pretty much undevelopable. As far as I know, there's never been a proposal, a serious proposal to develop that parcel. And then across the street is our property owned by DEP, and then it goes down to the West Branch, and the Tilly Foster Farm property is there on both sides of the road. The county owns, I think, about 150 acres or so. Also, from an environmental standpoint, the distance from this property to the Middle Branch is about 1 mile, 1.2 miles. But on the Star Ridge Road property, I believe that slopes down towards 684. I think it goes towards the diverting reservoir. I don't think that the drainage goes back up towards Peach Lake because of the ridge. It's not going to go over that ridge. And I don't think it goes north towards the West Branch. I think it goes southeast towards the Middle Branch. So that's something that also an environmental inventory would look at. Somebody like Hudsonia or Clemens, they would do a good job with looking at both of those parcels. So I think the public trust doctrine would look at that as a necessary requirement. Then from a public participation standpoint, I think that, this has come up before. The Pugsley Road parcel, whether that vetting was enough, it was done by the committee. They had their evaluation. Yes, the county executive was very much pushing for this property to be purchased, but it does provide this corridor that's about 300 acres. So, from a county perspective, I think that made sense. Was it too much money? I don't think we could debate that, but the public knew how much it was going to be. The public was involved. They voted for that $5 million, and I don't think anybody's complained about it since. Not that I know of. But also, I'm glad that the supervisor talked about his interest in recreational opportunities. I had mentioned earlier to Mr. O'Rourke, I was involved personally with the purchase by AIG of over 600 acres from Mrs. Farrington, on both sides of the border. And we succeeded in selling 300 acres to Danbury. You can see that's Haynes Pond right there, but right to the right is Sanford's Pond, and they made a beautiful park out of it, 300-acre park. We tried to sell Haynes Pond and another about 300 acres to the town, and we got no interest. Unfortunately, it fell on deaf ears. I think Ms. Finizzi was removed from the board, from the committee, and the committee was in favor of that. I think that really that committee should be reformed, and that would allow the board to look to some other entities within some other administrative agencies that could help inform your decision. I happened to look in the town code and saw that the Parks and Recreation Commission used to have that function, that they would give you their recommendation about park land acquisition. I don't know whatever happened to that commission. It was formed by town law in 1992. But that's a sort of that's the sort of entity that the board, I think, needs to supplement its review of this project and general open space questions. So, you know, for other towns, they have gone ahead with open space acquisition, and it's been good for them economically, especially in the rail trail acquisitions that towns have made. The town of Poughkeepsie is probably the poster child for the biggest success, with 5 million people visiting Walkway or the Hudson over the last 13 years or so. But this area has so much potential, especially, you know, that Sanford's Pond and Haynes Pond area. That would be a wonderful place to concentrate your efforts. The Star Ridge Road, I knew Mrs. Fitchin. I had been to that property. You know, it's surrounded by residences. It's a beautiful area, no doubt about it. But there's not that context of other properties around it that form a corridor, undeveloped corridor, down to you know, the Middle Branch Reservoir. And just the fact that it is undeveloped, it has a value. It has a value to go and see the animals, to walk that property, and feel the feeling of not being overburdened by development. I think that does have a value, and the people who voted for this bond thought that as well. I really think that this project should be put up to a public referendum. Let people have a vote on it. If they want a ball fields there or pro swing there, let them vote for it. They did it before for the $5 million. They should have a chance to weigh in on this as well. Okay, thank you.
Still have a minute.
All right, and also I appreciate the 10 minutes. It's a lot nicer than having 3 minutes in the egg timer, so appreciate that part of it.
I don't like eggs, I look out.
All right, thanks very much.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Kathy Croft, and I live in the town of Southeast. I have a couple of questions for you. I missed it at the beginning of the meeting. Did you say there's going to be a 10-day comment period on this?
Well, it has to be in by Wednesday this week by 12 noon.
So what's the actual date?
The 19th.
Okay. So you'll accept comments up until
Written comments, yes.
noon. Okay. And you're going to post that PowerPoint on your website?
Yes.
All right. The resolution that you have in your packet, if you...
There's nothing in the packet tonight, right?
Well, it was back up from last week, I guess.
Okay, yes, that would be coming forward next week.
Printed it out. If you email it to Senator Harkam, you're going to want to spell his name correctly.
Okay.
His name is not Harkman, it's Harkam with an H.
Nope, he lost his vote, Rick.
Okay, and there's one last comment I wanted to make. Back in 2014, there was an update of the comprehensive plan. The Route 312 area around where the crossroads at 312 was being in front of the planning board at that time was not really discussed during that comprehensive plan update. You might want to revisit that area with all of these different, with the logistics center, obviously that's already in the planning stage, but if there's going to be something else potentially on Pugsley Road, you might want to go back, revisit the comprehensive plan, and do a Route 312 overlay of that area. Because I think, I actually printed out a section that they wrote in, and I think it was AKRF was part of this process, and they were talking about the infrastructure, and they talked about the 2-lane county roads and multi-lane interstate. I know that some of 312 is going to be made into 4 lanes at certain points, but the bridge over the bridge over I-84, to my knowledge, is not going to be made into a 4-lane. It's not going to be updated, and I think that does create a big bottleneck for any development that will be coming into that area in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Has anyone that not spoken want to come up to the mic? Okay, with that, we're now going to the second phase, which if anyone comes up to speak, you're entitled to 5 minutes, and if you had not spoken before, you would only have 5 minutes. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify my position I am not opposed to having a sports complex, and in that location, I think it would be good. When we originally bought the Pugsley Road property, we overpaid for it grossly. With the advent of interstate logistics moving in and straightening out 312 and improving Pugsley Road, it is a good location for this sports complex. My concern for the town of Southeast is we got screwed when we bought that property. It has now increased in value, so we were fortunate, but it was a horrible piece of property for open space. As Craig Cole has mentioned, the parcel on Star Ridge is actually a very good parcel for open space. As far as parking, as somebody mentioned, across from Seven Oaks Lane, there's 20 acres of flat, easy to put a parking area in there.
There's actually a pull-off. This is an old tree farm. It's overgrown now, but this is an excerpt from right here.
Exactly, there is a pull-off, and I pulled into that too, because as Craig mentioned, I'm familiar with those parcels up there. I think it would be a great parcel for the town to purchase for the correct amount of money. The development potential on the parcel on Star Ridge Road is very little. It is heavily clay soil, as Insight will attest. It's clay. Other lots that were developed up there were 20-acre lots when they subdivided the original parcel, because they had to have so much fill and so much expansion area. You really can't build houses up there. It's worthless for that. So what's the value of that property if the whole parcel was, with the house, was purchased for $1.2 million, and the house is 8,000 square feet or so? What's the value of the house? $1 million. So what's the value of the rest of the property? 200,000? That's not what the proposal is, I'm sure. If we can buy that parcel for 200,000 or even 300,000, I think it would be a good thing for the town. The parcel on Pugsley Road now is worth a lot more than it was before. This is not an even swap. Put $1 million in the till of Southeast and do the swap. Maybe. I didn't do an appraisal, but if we want to do this deal, the people of Southeast shouldn't get ripped off for the price. Star Ridge is a great property for the town and usable for open space. Pugsley Road never was, never will be. So if we can do this and make a deal and let them do their complex there, I think it would be great. But make sure we get the right money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just from the comments from the audience, I hope that this board will reconsider something, and that is the need to continue this discussion. This discussion should not end. We need a lot of thought in this particular, on this particular project. A lot of thought and a lot of input from residents. It is not enough. It is not enough that we just have had one meeting over such an important decision. So I ask you to reconsider very, very carefully all the comments that have been made. We are not speaking here about the organization. We are speaking here about open space, the appropriateness of open space, the analysis that has been made. No one has really made an analysis. Nobody has really stood and carefully analyzed the pros and cons. And the people here, by the way, are here because of my ad, or they may have heard, or else we would not have been here. No one knew the magnitude of this project. No one knew the details of this project, even as of last week when I was here. no one could give us real details about this project. And I think that in respect to the residents, Mr. Hay, you spoke about the various steps that have to be taken. I was shocked when I received my packet, not 2 days before the February 6th meeting, and thumbing through, I already saw the home rule resolution. All it needed were your signatures. That's all that were needed. And this was February 6th. And I was shocked to hear Mr. O'Rourke say last week, February 6th, we have already contacted state legislators. This project has been in the works, behind the scenes, blindsiding the residents that they did not know. Maybe all of you knew, but I certainly didn't know. And the only reason why I had any kind of curiosity was because I saw that public hearing notice. I don't know how many people here saw that public hearing notice last week. And I did not see, by the way, that notice again this week to remind people. It was not in the newspapers. And I have the newspaper, and I looked at it very carefully. Was there another repeat notice of a public hearing on a development that no one really knew anything about? Now, the last thing I want to say is, when I looked at it, and I looked at some of the material that I got from the planning board just this Monday, the first word that came into my mind was
1 minute.
segmentation. Thank you.
No,
You had
ma'am,
another
no,
minute.
you have 1 minute. I was just telling you had 1 minute.
Then I'll take that minute to again implore you not to take this step and to have adequate analysis made and an adequate notification, even have discussion. All of the open space projects that the Open Space Committee looked at, believe me, there was plenty of discussion. And yes, some what shall I say, opposition here or there. But that is what is needed in this project. Not just, I don't know if we've been here 2 hours or an hour and a half. That is insufficient, absolutely insufficient.
Time. Thank you. Yes.
I just want to clarify the process here. You're going to go to the state legislature just to see if you can exchange this open space property? Is that
We will have-
correct?
There will be a vote next Thursday night. If it passes, it will go up to the state to have them consider it.
Right, but that doesn't mean you're going to do this. I'm assuming if it's allowed, that
If
there will
it's
be
a-
more public hearings on
Yes,
this issue.
big
So I want to,
This is just to ask for permission from the state, can we swap these?
that was my question.
Yes.
Because from what I'm hearing here, Ann is suggesting that you're trying to railroad this through, and I'm not getting that impression myself.
The only railroading that's going through is we have a deadline of time, which I explained that the Open Space Committee had a similar time. They were ready to do it in 30-something days. We had 17 days, so it's equal time. It goes to the state, and I read earlier on what has happened in the past. It approved by the Senate, approved by whatever, went to the governor, and he vetoed something. So that could happen.
So that
But
was my question. I
if we
just
send
want
it
to
to
clarify that you're not going to do this and then boom, make this transition
No.
and it's going to be over. I'm assuming that if they say yes, you may transfer that property, that there will be more public hearings and
Yes.
discussion. This
Yes,
is
sir.
not a done deal.
Ma'am Venezia, don't shake your head no. Well, okay, but it's not true. No, okay, look it.
You know,
If it's approved by by Albany and it comes back down here, okay? Then it begins the process. Then the owner will go out, do all these studies, whatever. It'll probably take 1.5 to 2 years after he uses this. He's probably gonna run and not do it anyway. But it'll take at least 1.5 to possibly 2 years and go through all the rigorous development process that is done with every project that comes in this time. Interstate Logistics has been going through it now for probably 2 years plus. This will give them the same chance.
Okay, well, I just want to clarify that because, you know, I don't want to feel like this is the last chance anybody has to
Not even
speak, and
close.
because I didn't get that impression.
No,
And I also want to clarify what this gentleman said about buying up Haynes Pond and buying more property. That open space bond is done. It's over. It's no longer available for use. So we won't be using that to buy any more property for the town. So as far as suggesting that we buy some more property, I just want people to be aware that bond is over. We can no longer use it. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Finizzi? No. Ms. Finizzi? No. 5 minutes.
Well, then I'll write it up.
Okay, thank you.
You know-
Sir?
Oh, I didn't realize someone was...
No, we 10 and 5.
Okay, so I didn't get much notice either. I heard about this yesterday. So I didn't have much time to prepare or to research. However, sometimes a cursory look at things really sheds a nice light. Look at the Star Ridge property, look where it's located. It's right next to the town of North Salem. The last time I looked, North Salem was one of the wealthiest towns in Westchester County. Now, I did a quick check before I came here today on what the median income is between Lake Carmel and Brewster. $70,000. $70,000 per household. This company's located in Mount Kisco. Okay, that is another very wealthy area. It's probably, I don't know where their property is down there, it's probably in the town, because the people wouldn't put it anywhere else. Somebody said there's computer analysis of your swing to help pitchers pitch better, batters hit more, things like that. Somebody mentioned price. $70,000 mean income is going to pay for that? Computer analysis of your kid swinging a bat? I don't think so. The bottom line is what I see here. Oh, and somebody mentioned about the strict land use up there on that ridge. Well, you better believe it. Because those wealthy properties, they have really strict land use. They don't let anything done unless it's reviewed. And the same thing's going on in Garrison and Cold Spring. They review projects in meticulous detail, right down to the cornices and the shingles going up on those buildings. Now we're being bamboozled. We've got a prime piece of property that, as everybody mentioned, was bought with public funds, a bond referendum. Everybody wanted it open space. You can use open space, believe me. If you've got 2 legs, you can use it, and you can go in there even if there isn't trails. If there's a trail, it's even better. But what we're getting here seems to me to be property that they're saying over there in that area in North Salem, oh, you know, what are we going to do with this here? You know, you can't develop it. It's no good for a house. Let's take Pugsley and get rid of Star Ridge, you know? What do those people down there know about this stuff? The other thing I want to mention is, before we came to Putnam County, we lived in Brooklyn, okay? I lived in a housing project. We used to play stickball on the lawn, and you had to do it really fast because those were the days of Robert Moses in 1960, and you weren't really allowed to walk on the grass. You only could play on the concrete. So if you were caught on the grass by a cop, you know, you were in trouble. Let me tell you, it was no fun playing stickball. We lived to come up here. And I remember those days vividly when we rode our bikes up Putnam Drive and drank at the spring, I forget where it was, on Longfellow Road, and rode further down and picked apples off the house. To me, that was worth everything. I think we better give this really careful consideration. The lady that spoke before about more study, more consideration, absolutely, that definitely has to be done. The other thing I wanted to mention, Pugsley Road goes right into Fair Street. Can you imagine the amount of traffic that's going to increase into Fair Street? That's going to turn, Fast Street, I live off Bullet Hole. Fast Street now, okay, cars go by, it's not too bad. But when this thing goes up, there's gonna be cars every 2 minutes, I should say every 2 seconds, whizzing by. People are gonna say, I don't wanna go to 312, it's a nightmare, I'm gonna go down to Fast Street. So I don't think anybody's considered the traffic ramifications of this project at all.
1 minute.
Okay, thank you. Again, I don't understand, I didn't hear my question answered, why this is not being put in a high-density, high-use area like the Hamlet of Carmel or Brewster. Why don't they move this to Mahopac? Just try doing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Craig Cole, Star Ridge Road again. Living on that road, I just take a little, taken a little bit back by those last comments. The homes on Star Ridge Road are all raised ranches, small colonials. Sure. It's not North Salem. We live in Brewster. We pay our taxes. Now, the kids over there go to the North Salem schools. We also pay the North Salem school taxes, which can be considerable based on the assessments that are done over there versus what's done here. And there's always been a funny thing with that. But that road is not large, wealthy homes that are gonna all of a sudden, make it not appropriate for open space. The other point that the attorney made a little while ago that I'd also like to point out to the board, if you could blow that picture out farther, he talked about the other area being more open space, 300 acres there, it made more sense. The 95 acres that you're considering an open space on Star Ridge, if you go down to the very corner of that property on 7 Oaks, that abuts Ryder Farm. I don't know what the classification of Ryder is. You folks probably do. But I know it's 250 acres. It's agriculture. It's not going to be developed. Maybe that in perpetuity. I'm not sure. You go right, and then you go down that road, and immediately you hit the Peach Lake Preserve and the Finchon Preserve. So virtually what you're talking about is a little road with houses that runs through open space or undevelopable space all around that area. And it's not North Salem. It is not wealthy people that live there that are gonna fight this or that are saying, oh, let's shove this project down, to the other part of town. That's a mischaracterization. So I wanted to make the point that it's not a little island that you'd be considering for an open space at the bottom of the hill. As you broaden that out, you'll see there's open space all around it. And really, you're looking at some residential development that comes up in the middle of it and are on the outsides of it. But you're talking about a considerable amount of protected area there. There's a reason for it. It's a historic scenic road. It's been that way for 120 years, or even longer. Once again, I think it's a great idea with what you're trying to do for that area. Don't know if it's the right swap. I'm not going to address that. But as Don mentioned, the area is a beautiful area to walk. If you could come up from Peach Lake and you could walk up that road and you could enter and then look out and see those western views and then walk down into the property. There's trails there now. The former owner put trails in there. You wouldn't even have to put anything in. And as Don also mentioned, there's an area there that's already cut in. That's got a flat area by where the Christmas tree area is. They used to have to put big concrete blocks up there to prevent people from even going in there. So it's really it's set up pretty without any big expense. It could become a really nice area for people to hike and enjoy that area and really do a full loop. You could come up from the lake and you could go up and you could see a forever view. I doubt there's an open space situation like that probably anywhere in the county. So that's what I wanted to add.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No.
I think the statement that you can come up from the lake is incorrect. That the property on Peach Lake is private property owned by the Star Ridge Manor Civic Association, and non-residents are not permitted to use that property. So there's no public access to the lake there. But I have a question about the procedure going forward. Mr. Hay, you said that all the approvals and reviews and such could take anywhere from 1.5 years to 2 years.
Yes, if it's approved.
If it's approved. But my question is, more specifically, if this resolution goes to the legislature and they approve this, what is the actual process for doing this land swap, as we're calling it? Does it just happen, or is there going to be more hearings on
Will,
that?
could you respond to that, please?
The town, if the town board decides to pursue it, we'd enter into a contract, we'd enter a negotiation, enter into a contract that would provide for the swapping of deeds, if you will, but there would also be a process by which lands would have to be subdivided, at least the property on Pugsley Road would have to be subdivided so that there would be, the acquisition parcel would be established. In that process, they'd also then be doing the review of what they fully propose to utilize that parcel for, and that would have to go through the planning board process. There would be further environmental reviews at the planning board. Ultimately, when everything is said and done, there would be a closing and the deeds would transfer, and according to the terms of whatever that contract might be. And there could be a lot of conditions in the contract where certain other considerations have to be taken into account. I don't want to, pre-think this, but there's a lot to be said between now and the time that the land transfer would take place.
Okay, I just want to read a small section from the resolution that was posted on the town website. It says on the second page, "Be it further resolved, the supervisor of the town of Southeast or a duly authorized representative is hereby empowered and directed to execute any agreement, documents, or papers as may be necessary to implement the intent and purpose of this resolution." So I take that to mean, and you can correct me if I'm mistaken, I take that to mean that this document talks about transferring or alienating public parkland and swapping it with Pro Springs property on Star Ridge Road. I take it to mean...
Mr. Schwartz, that reference is to allowing the supervisor to sign the home rule request.
Okay, it is not
It's
in
not to
reference
sign a
to
contract.
actually transferring the property.
No.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
So I just want to clarify for me, because I'm a little lame. We go to the state, they say, okay, then we go through everything. Nothing happens at that point. And if they say no, then it's dead.
Yeah, of course, if they say no, it's dead.
Right,
But if they say yes, that doesn't mean...
Right, we're just
you
asking,
just go ahead and-
can we do this?
Right,
And if they
okay.
say yes, then we
have
have an
hearings.
entire
and
process of 2 years of trying to do it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, now wait. Ma'am, we set parameters how this meeting is to be conducted. You said when you were up there last, you're going to put your comments in writing. We were asking you to do that.
I'd like
Everyone
to
was
make
given
one
an
more
equal
comment,
opportunity.
if I might.
Pardon?
I'd like to make one more comment, if I might.
2 minutes, max.
Excuse me?
We'll give you 2 minutes, max.
2 minutes.
The home rule resolution, okay, is sent up to the state. The state legislators will vote on that home rule for the
State
for the
and
swapping.
assembly.
Right.
State and assembly.
Yeah, this is what I meant. The state legislature will vote. Now, when you mention the 1 to 2 years, just because that land is now swapped, you still have to go through a DEIS, don't you not?
Yes, ma'am. We've been saying that since day
So
one.
what you were referring to, the time period, is the secret process.
Yes.
But you didn't say that.
Look,
But you didn't
you're
say
more
that.
Okay.
This is the secret process. And this then is, and the secret process is then based on the fact that the quote-unquote swap land at the the transfer, let me call it the transfer of the property has taken place with the approval of the state legislature. That is the DEIS. And yes, the DEIS is going to take a long time, and as part of the DEIS, yes, we are going to examine this property. There's going to be an environmental assessment and so forth and so on. But the property will have already been swapped.
Thank you. 30 seconds, come on.
Okay, correct. Thank you to the gentleman that clarified about what Star Ridge is like. I understand that might not be wealthy, but you're next to a very wealthy community, and they are never, ever gonna let you put up a ballpark next to their community. That land is never gonna be developed, never. We can stand our ground, keep Pugsley Road just the way it is as open space, and I bet you we'll get Star Ridge as well.
Thank you. Town board members? Edwin, you have anything to add?
No, I thought Mr. O'Rourke had got to speak.
Do you want to speak? Go. We're not stopping you. Oh, sorry. I thought he was going to yell.
No, I thought.
Thank you once again. There are quite a few comments that were made, and I thought it appropriate to provide me at least some time to respond to some of them. And I think
5
that...
minutes.
I'm sorry?
5 minutes.
Well, everybody else
But
has a little
they'll
more
get
than
another
that,
minute, I know. Go
okay.
ahead.
All right, so let me start by saying that I listened very carefully to Mr. Bacon, whom I've known for quite some time, as the attorney representing Ms. Finizzi. And you may note that he said that he had 3 points to make. One had to do with public trust doctrine. He talked about the environmental perspective, talked about the valuation of the property. I'm sure those are things that he mentioned in his letter dated February 10th, 2020 that was submitted to the town board and which I received yesterday. And what I've done is, I have prepared a response which addresses each of those issues and corrects many of the misstatements that have been made tonight as well as in Mr. Bacon's letter. The thing that is most disconcerting is that he talks about the proposed exchange of a portion of the Pugsley Road parkland for acreage on Star Ridge Road is contrary to the public trust doctrine. It is not. And the reason for that is set forth in a memorandum, and this will be part of the public record, which corrects that misstatement and misunderstanding. A proper analysis of this proposed exchange, which results in the town adding additional acreage for parkland and open space, and receiving property with a greater fair market value than that being exchanged, clearly is not only consistent with the public trust doctrine, but it advances the common law goals of adding parkland and preserving and enhancing open space. What I'm handing up is an appraisal that's been done by McGrath Associates. They were engaged in, I would say, approximately a month ago to examine and appraise these properties as to fair market value. That appraisal of both the Pugsley Road property as well as the Star Ridge property is Exhibit D to my submission. You will note that the property, based upon fair market evaluation, highest and best use, the property on Star Ridge Road, not only is the town getting more acreage, you are getting property that's more valuable. That satisfies the public trust doctrine. Secondly, as far as the issue of alienation of parkland, again, you will have, as part of this recital, information prepared by Fred Wells, a registered landscape architect who is with our agricultural consultant, has many, many years of experience all throughout the Hudson Valley and is well considered in terms of the profession. You will note what he has set forth in terms of an analysis of the proper context in which the town board should consider this proposal. Finally, part of this will also address not only the legal authority for what I've just told you, but also the information that is proper and appropriate for you to consider. I hand this up to the town clerk as part of the official record. Without getting myself killed as I get mine.
Time for Diane.
Thank you.
I might add, when you take a look at the credentials of our appraiser, he has done, as you are, some of you are aware, most of the evaluations for the New York City Department of Environmental Protection, as well as for the State Historic and Preservation Department, as well as hundreds and hundreds of organizations throughout New York State. There was a comment that was made that there was some comparison drawn with the Grand Concourse in Yankee Stadium. Nothing could be farther from the truth. This is not the Grand Concourse. Yankee Stadium is not being proposed. There is no stadium that's being proposed. There's no dome that's being proposed.
Rick, you have 1 minute of 5.
now, but it will be by the
Time, sir, there's no interchange? Okay, you're about, almost to your 5 minutes. We will grant you 2 additional minutes as well. And then,
Insofar as the notice and there's some kind of conniving that's going on, you know, as a courtesy, we mailed notices to every property owner within 500 feet of both the Pugsley Road property as well as the Star Ridge property. In addition to that, we as a courtesy, notified the town supervisor of the town of Patterson, who is not here, but was told and was informed about this meeting. One other comment was made with regard to the comprehensive plan that was adopted in 2014. One of the comments that's set forth in that comprehensive plan is that the comprehensive plan specifically endorses public and private cooperation to provide recreational opportunities for the kids and adult residents of this town. The citation is in the papers that have been submitted. This is precisely the kind of opportunity that was contemplated by the comprehensive plan. It also is the kind of activity that is productive, that is not only something that's going to generate tax revenues that previously were not being generated.
1 minute.
And so, one of the other considerations that has to be made is what your comprehensive plan says, and you're abiding by what that plan says. As far as the truck traffic in the immediate vicinity, all of you have seen the Ace Indico trucks, numerous trucks that are up and down 684 all over the place right now, and those trucks are right next to the baseball fields that are up there at Terra Vest Park. I'm unaware of any accidents that have occurred with respect to that truck traffic. To suggest that we know what's going to happen now
30 seconds.
is something that we don't know. And obviously, once we go through an environmental review process, which will be required, all of that will be vetted, and one way or the other will be dealt with. I know my time is up, and I appreciate your listening to my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Town board members, if you'd like to speak.
Well, I just want to ask, Ms. Venezia said something about the DEIS. If going into the DEIS assumes that the swap has already occurred, is that?
A DEIS would not be prepared until there is a contract to do the swap.
Okay.
The DEIS would be done as part of the land use review procedure, and it's part of the State Environmental Quality Review Act. We are complying with, to a degree, with the State Environmental Quality Review Act, SECRA, by doing an environmental assessment form, which has been prepared and submitted as part of the package to seek legislative approval of the alienation of parkland. So there are several different phases of.
So a contract would have to have been made up in order to start the DEIS or the SECRA process?
They're certainly not going to spend the money to prepare a DEIS and then an FEIS. until they have some contractual right to acquire the property. That's my understanding.
So by looking for this, we're going to Albany to say, can we do this swap? And if we do the swap, they won't start making any plans or providing us with any documentation until we agree to sell the property or swap the property.
But
In
the
which
contract
case,
would be conditioned upon many conditions,
Many-
which is in full environmental review and whatever other conditions the town board sees necessary to in place on the contract. It's a
Okay.
negotiation.
okay.
It's not a done deal by any means. Just by getting the approval of the authorization to alienate parkland does not put this town board in a position where they have to convey the land without a negotiated contract on terms that are favorable to the town.
And in the negotiation process of the contract, would it be in our best interest to come to the town for a referendum or
Well,
to seek?
There's no requirement in law that you have a referendum.
No requirement in the law, and I'm just, well, I'm sympathetic to some of the residents' concerns that this is being pushed through too quickly, and if we send this to Albany for approval, or looking for authorization, I don't want that to be the signal that we've agreed, and this is now going to happen.
Well, I don't think there's anything written that we've agreed to do anything other than to seek the approval of the state legislature to allow for the alienation of parkland. That's the process.
Thank you.
I just have one comment is, and I wish Lori was still here, but she left, but there was and Don too, there was a few comments about the house being appraised at 1.3 million. If the house is worth $1 million, the land is worth 300,000. It's my understanding when you have a house and you have a large swath of land around it, that land is ancillary to the house. So when you subdivide the house out of that land, then that land becomes more valuable because it's not just yard. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but I just wanted to make sure that it's not tied to the appraisal as it sits, and once it's subdivided, the appraisal would be different. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion to recess the meeting this evening. It'll not be closed, but recessed, and will remain open for written comment until Wednesday, February 19th at 12 noon. Anything comes in by that time will be a matter of the record. After that, it'll still be on record in a sense, but a matter of record for this public hearing. Anything right after that time would be entered, but not into this record, but into the record of the town of Southeast. So moved for discussion.
Is that really the way to do that, Willis? Should we not close the meeting
No.
tonight and just
No,
leave the the written comment?
You could close the hearing.
Okay,
But
right.
the record would remain open to accept written submissions.
Right, correct.
until-
So you want to
We're not going to be having another public
Right,
hearing
and
per se.
the way it was worded to me was, we're leaving this open and we're not
The
going to have
record
another.
remains open.
It's just open for the written
written
comment.
comments,
Correct.
which will
okay.
end at
Yep.
12 noon on Wednesday, February 19th. So moved for discussion. So moved for
I'll
a
second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all for coming.
Do we have to close the meeting? Do we have to close the meeting?
Well, we just did it.
You close the public hearing, you should really close the meeting.
Okay,
I'll entertain a
is-
motion to close tonight's meeting.
There's a motion to close on Eric's part. Any second?
Joan
Is
O'Connor?
there a second?
Yeah.
Close?
Aye.
Okay, Joan O'Connor.
All in favor?
Aye.